like to call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Education on September 23rd at 7 o'clock. Tonight, to say the Pledge of Allegiance, we have the Tackle JV cheerleaders, if you guys want to come on up. Come on up. We're going to have you guys stand all in front and face the camera. I'm going to say your name. When I say your name, just give like a little wave, okay, so everyone knows who you are and that you're here. Okay, so tonight, and Miss Moore, you need to come up too. Yes, we need you to lead, of course. Okay, so we have Miss Jamie Moore. She is the coach. Miss Barb, do you want to come up too? No, I'm good. No, you're good. All right. So tonight we have here with us Emily Gillis, Courtney Moore, Morgan Moore, Avery Gross, Olivia Cricciolo, Riley Baker, Ava Rewalt, Ava Pites, Elena Vespi, Trinity Cease, and Madison Sutherland. Okay, so you guys can turn around and we're going to say the pledge when you guys are ready, okay?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job.
Great job. We'll be hearing from you guys again in just a few minutes, okay? Next up, we have our mission statement. Angela?
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide quality education that empowers students to be successful in the global community.
Thank you. Roll call. Angela?
Sarah?
Here.
Jessica?
Here.
Kyle?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
Margaret?
Here.
Sherry?
Here.
And I am present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Looking for approval of the agenda.
I motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Support. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have our consent agenda, Brian.
On the consent agenda, the one title was incorrect, so I apologize. Mr. Yelnats is a 7th grade girls basketball coach, but there still is a resignation there.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent with the amendment that he just discussed and approve the consent agenda as amended.
Correct.
In the attached documentation.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
I will be abstaining because I have a relative that is in the personnel point report this time.
Okay, any other discussion?
We have a couple of our new hires here. Make sure we have Stephanie Graham. She will be the K-12 theater director. Stephanie is a 2016 graduate. So, we look forward to having her join the team. I'm looking for the other ones. I don't know. Okay, we had a couple of resignations, and Lloyd Holbert, bus driver, took a position in another industry. And then Nick Yelnats, 7th grade girls basketball coach. Part of that was a realignment of when seasons are playing, so some of our coaches couldn't hold 2 positions or and so forth. We do have some new hires. The middle school being a Title I this year. We have Jody Barron. I don't believe any of them are here. Amber Jackson, Shannon Schmeisper. If I pronounced that, I apologize. All Title I at the middle school. Jennifer Lasky, the lunchroom supervisor, and Stephen DeCito is the FTC robotics co-coach.
Welcome. Happy to have you guys. Okay, I'm going to do a roll call. Chris?
Aye. I'm sorry.
Kyle?
Aye.
Jessica?
Aye.
Sherry? Aye. Margaret? Aye. Angela? Abstain. And I vote aye. Motion passes. Okay, next up we have our True Blue moment, and tonight we have the JV tackle cheerleaders. If you guys want to come up. Jamie, are you going to talk first or start with the cheer?
You guys are going to allow me to talk? Yes.
I warned you.
I kind of got. Okay.
I did prepare them. Oh,
So TAFL, or the Thumb Area Football League, is a youth football and cheerleading program for kids from the 2nd grade to 7th grade. There are 6 school districts currently in our league. It's Algonac, Anchor Bay, Port Huron, Northern, Richmond, and Yale. Each of these districts hosts at least one game throughout the season, totaling 9 games this year. All the games are on Saturdays, usually hot, but it's fun. This year, Richmond has 107 total players, 41 cheerleaders, and 66 football players, which is actually really good, up from last year. So this with me tonight is my JV Team White, and we will be going to competition on October 26th in hopes of taking first place, just like our state champions here at Richmond High School. So they're going to do 2 cheers for you guys tonight. One, we definitely, everybody is, gotta get in there. When we say go, you say fight. So, all right.
Mighty Nobles, ready, set, D-E-V-I-L-S, the Mighty Nobles. D-E-V-I-L-S, the Mighty Nobles.
Good job. Okay, ready? All right. Emily, you want to call it? All right, this is where everybody gets involved. Okay?
If you want to win this game, ready, set. If you want to win the game, you will stand by right. When we say go, you stand by. Go, Bird! Go, Bird! Go, Bird! If you want to win the game, you will stand by right. When we say go, you stand by. Go, Bird! Go, Bird! Go, Bird! Go,
Thank you, you guys did so great. Good luck at competition. Yep. Did any of the girls want to say anything or no? They're all set. No? Okay. I wonder what they like. Good luck at competition, girls. You guys do very good representing Richmond, okay?
Good job.
Okay, next up, we have a presentation, Mr. Walmsley on the bond proposal.
Okay, we have spent the last couple weeks trying to get the information out there and so forth for our community regarding the upcoming bond. Give me a second here. In many of our meetings that we've been to, I have been talking a lot with the community, particularly on the one-on-one and small groups, regarding referring them to the bond website, because we've mentioned over and over that it's an average potential increase for homeowners. But one of the things that we came up with as you go through is there's a calculator, and as I've been talking to individuals, they have been really surprised how, for some cases, it's not an impact, or very little impact for them, I should say, compared to the average. And you can see what it is for you, your own particular situation, when you click on this tax calculator. It gives you a disclaimer, as with any legal advice, etc. But you can enter your information in there. I don't know if I can increase it from here. There it goes. Where there were 3 situations. I met a husband and wife who had an annual income of $50,000. where they were entered in the first box. And I'll just give you an example so you can see it. You know, their position was they could not afford the 140 that we've been talking on the average. I asked them what their housing value, their house was as a market value. They said it was $150,000 worth, so it's approximately half of that. So when they entered 75,000 in for that number, they are senior citizens, falls under homestead, and they were in the city of Richmond. And when you calculate that for this particular family, it worked out to be a total of $43 increase for the year. So that particular individual said, I can do this. So I encourage everybody to check out the website, put your personal stuff in there. Again, when you're talking averages, there will be people on the up above it and below it. There are more people I'm finding falling below the average. There was a second example of another senior citizen. They had an average household income a little over $65,000, market value of $180,000. Homestead in the city of Richmond, for them it was 36 cents a day. When I was at the Lenox Township City Council meeting, there was a gentleman there, $58,000 was his income. His market value was $180,000, $90,000, not a senior citizen. And for this particular person, it worked out to be 29 cents a day. So I really would encourage people to use this calculator to see how the millage or the bond rate or the millage rate would affect you. You can see on the website here, we've gotten several positive articles in terms of getting that information out there. Most recently, the City of Richmond City Council passed a resolution encouraging voters to go out to the polls. And so pretty much every week we've gotten news headlines regarding it. We've got 2 new questions that came in this past weekend, so I'll be updating the FAQ with those 2 questions. But we have really spent a lot of time trying to get the message out there, whether it's small meetings, individual meetings, and you can see by the bottom part there are several that we've already accomplished. There's a couple that we had to cancel due to either low enrollment numbers from our senior citizens dinners and so forth. Tomorrow I'll be meeting with Coldwell Bankers, the real estate agents in the area, because they're very interested in the bond and how that affects them as well as their clients. So again, if you haven't heard the information, check out the website. We did videotape with the City of Richmond to be aired. There was a technical difficulty on the sound, so we're going to re-record it tomorrow, so that will be airing on the bond. There's cards in front of you. I encourage you to take a couple. There's more over there on the table if you know anybody who doesn't know about it. This past weekend, there were several staff members who did a walking campaign literature to try to get the information out there. Again, we've received a lot of positives, so this gives you the perspective of where we are with the bond. Absentee ballots should have been mailed out by the 21st of this month. Anybody can vote absentee. You can start casting your ballot now. So I'd encourage you, if you're not going to be able to go to the polls on the 5th, to go obtain your absentee ballot.
Thank you. All right, next up we have public comment, a portion of our meeting where people in the audience can come and address the board. You have 3 minutes to speak. It's not a question and answer period. If you'd like a call back, you can leave your name and number, and I can get back with you. Is there anyone who would like to address the board today? Okay. Moving on, we have the Board of Education student rep report.
Well, as usual, I'll start off with the Lee School. Their first month went really smoothly. Everybody's finally getting the gist of things, getting back to the business. And they completed their NWEA testing, which is a great thing to get out of the way for them. And the Lee School would also like to thank Mrs. Shack and the high school band for coming to perform on the 20th. The students and staff really enjoyed their performance. The second grade team is taking part in the Fall Literacy Learning Cohort at the MISD. Last week, the team worked on strategies for phonological awareness, and this week's focus will be on phonics and word study. September 25th, the PTO is having their World's Finest Chocolate fundraiser, so that's exciting. And the first PBIS assembly is Friday the 27th, and the focus is on kindness and compassion. And to end off with the Lee School, students and staff are very excited to participate in the homecoming parade, which is also this Friday. Moving on to the middle school, something that I thought was really cool is that they started today a 5th grade girls mentoring program, and it's called A Beautiful Me. And I think this is just a great way for girls to get to express themselves and to just feel more confident about themselves, so that's really cool. And the middle school is also very excited to be taking part in the homecoming activities this week. It's definitely going to be very eventful for all 3 schools. And the PTA will be hosting the Boo Bash in a few weeks. I remember the Boo Bash was always my favorite part of middle school, so that's really exciting for everybody there. And finally, or not finally, I have 2 more, just kidding. The middle school is looking forward to their homecoming pep assembly. And finally, they're fulfilling their NWEA testing, and that's also at the high school. Each middle school and high school are still working on completing NWEA. At the high school, 43 students have signed up to take the PSAT next month, and this is completely voluntary, and it's great practice for the SAT, and you really want to get all the practice you can before the SAT, just because it is so important in your education. And College Application Week is October 7th through the 11th, and during this week, students will learn about the application process, free FAFSA, I think that's how you pronounce it?
That is exactly how you pronounce it.
Free FAFSA assistance, and college reps will be around during the conferences for anybody interested to speak to them. And a reminder for the high school is that Manufacturing Day is October 4th. The RHS is sending 30 students to tour Lanson and Romeo. And lastly, for the high school, Homecoming Week is this week, and we have Spirit Days for every day of the week, a bonfire at 7, and the parade and game Friday. So it's going to be very eventful for the high school this week. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like a fun week coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have all your things ready for each day?
Of course I do. I always plan ahead for Spirit Days.
Good to know. Okay.
Great. All right, next we have Superintendent and Legislative Update, Brian.
Okay, to piggyback on what was shared, this is the 4th year now in a row that Pyro Joe's will be sponsoring a fireworks show after the homecoming football game. Very excited about that. They do a phenomenal job. I mean, it's no little show. It's a good show. Prior to our next board meeting, just a reminder, parent-teacher conferences will be coming up on October 9th and 10th. The 9th, 10th, and 11th are half-day of school with parent-teacher conferences in the afternoon and evening. So it's a great time to meet with your child and see their progress, because believe it or not, we're almost halfway through the first card marking for the school year. I'm excited to announce that on October 4th, the state Chief Deputy Superintendent, Sheila Ellis, who was the interim superintendent of the state, has chose Richmond to come visit Richmond, see our programs, wants to have an opportunity to talk to us to see what we've been doing here. I had an opportunity to meet with not only the Chief Deputy Superintendent, but also the State Superintendent, Michael Rice, last Thursday. And obviously I extended an invitation out to them. They're always welcome here because we have a lot of great things going on. So Sheila Ellis would like to come out on October 4th. So I gave you some background on her. If you are available, I will let you know more details as we get close and kind of what she's looking at. But they don't visit many schools very often, so that's pretty exciting that they've chosen Richmond. In front of you have the robotics team invite. There was a card that was sent to the board office for board members. They are part of a Blue Water Area Robotics Alliance, and they were able to get a practice field that all the Blue Water Area teams will utilize. And so they have a grand opening and naming event, and you can see a picture. So it's on Tuesday, October 8th from 2 to 7. If you could make it, I'm sure the robotics team would love to see you there. It's a great opportunity for our kids because it provides them a full court to practice on for their robotics. And that's one of the things that, from a space issue, that we don't have the space to allow them. Though if I could put a plug into it, should the bond pass, we would have the space to be allowed to do multiple events like this. So very excited about that one. And finally, I will talk to you about the budget. If you can't sleep, here's the budget. You can read it. Last Wednesday and actually Thursday, The House, Senate, and House Republicans, or the House of Representatives and the Senate passed what's called a conference committee report. And if you recall from our last board meeting, I said they basically approved a blank template with no numbers or anything in it that they would both agree to pass. That's in essence what they did. They passed a K-12 budget. It was negotiated late Wednesday. I was at a conference on Thursday where we spent most of the time talking about the budget. And then Friday, there was a couple changes between Thursday night and Friday. It was voted unanimously on the Senate. Democrats voted against the budget. The House Republicans all voted in favor of the budget except for one. And then in the Senate, it passed, but there was many of the Democrats in the Senate did move over and approve the budget. So it's on its way to the governors for signature. So some of the highlights of the budget. It continues, it does not put in anything that the research collaborative that is on our website that recommended how schools should be funded based on needs such as if you have a higher at-risk population, more dollars should be devoted because it costs more to run, special education, etc. It maintains the 2X formula, so for Richmond, we are expected to receive $240 per pupil increase. It puts a 2% increase, or about $60 million more into the budget for special ed reimbursement costs, which still doesn't even come close to what it truly costs to educate a special education student. It has a $10 million increase for English language learners. We receive some of those funds through our Section 41, which is a bilingual education, which we receive services through the county. I don't know how much we're actually going to get for that one. It puts another $14 million for literacy coaches. Currently, there are 93 literacy coaches across the state. In order to have a literacy coach, you have to commit to funding half of it. This doubles the number of literacy coaches, but again, the locals would have to fund half of it. We do lose the $25 per high school student that we receive. At that point, when that was put in the budget, it costs more to educate a high school student with the number of classes, and so that was a way of addressing the issue of costing more, so that we did lose. They did put $5 million more into GSRP, $5 million more into at-risk funding. Some of the language that took effect this year, such as if your students didn't perform at a certain level, you were required to redirect your at-risk funds. That language was taken out. We took a proactive approach and followed that and redirected some of our funds, which then that resulted in moving 31A funds from middle school, because it was just one pot we were sharing, to the elementary, moving Title I, etc. Though there's a lot more information still waiting on what that language looks like. It looks like we'll be able to potentially not have to do that, but we're going to continue this year keeping as is because our programs are up and running and started. It has $15 million new money for summer school literacy grants. If you remember, this third grade class is the class that must be proficient on the M-STEP in order to go on to fourth grade. And as a state, I believe it's about 35–40% of the students are scheduled not to be proficient on the M-STEP as a state. The other aspect in the budget is there is $80 million of what I'm going to call line item expenses that are for specific vendors. And so the position of the school committee is to eliminate those and put that $80 million into the per pupil allocation. The governor has three choices she can make. She can veto the budget because it doesn't address necessarily the roads package and the comprehension that she was presenting. She could approve the budget, or she could approve the budget and do a line item through certain items. If you recall the lame duck last December, there was over $60 million that was put in during lame ducks for these one-time special interest groups. Our position has always been get them out, put the money into the foundation for schools. So it is promising for the district from an increase over what we currently have. And so in the coming weeks, we will then be doing a budget amendment for the board to represent our current allocation as well as once we have our final student count. I believe that is it. So the package that you have in front of you, this handout, at the very bottom of each section, you'll see a word that's underlined conference. That's what was agreed to, the conference committee. Oftentimes it will say conference committee agreed with the executive, so you go up to the executive part and read, that's what they put in. But you'll see later on in the document, you'll see all the line items that are in there. I believe it's around page 20. You'll see the actual budget for the K-12 and so forth. There is a significant set of dollars that is coming out of school aid, that is no longer being allocated for colleges and universities, which is helping pay for these increases. And it begins the process of putting the school aid fund back to funding K-12 schools. That's all I have.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian? I have a question. Going back to the Sheila Alice, how did it come about that she's coming to Richmond? Do you just get notified, or it's just a random, what's the process? Or is there one?
Last Thursday, I had lunch with her and the state superintendent, and we began talking about Richmond. And one of the conversations was they referenced the improvements we made in the Bridges magazine, Academic Street Champion, which the sign has come down, so we got to get back up. I invited them out there, and this morning I received the email that says after our conversation she'd like to come see all the good things going on in Richmond.
So, thank you for that.
Great, thanks, Brian. Next up, we have items introduced from the board. Is there anybody who has anything they'd like to share tonight?
I do. First, I just we went quickly when we were voting on the new hires, but just to how exciting it is for Stephanie Graham to join us in that spot. I've watched her in plays for years, and she just lives and breathes that program and knows a lot of the people and the kids and all the years of the summer program and all that kind of stuff. So it's very exciting, and she's a Richmond grad, so it's just another person coming back wanting to give back to us. So very excited to have you. And Brian, I just wanted to just make a point in front of the TV cameras to thank you for all the work that you are doing to get the message out about the bond. You know, it's a huge task, and getting the information out, getting people educated on the vote, on what's happening. That tax calculator is a huge thing that a lot of people, I think, if they go to that and look at it, how you see what the impact really is on you. So thank you for reaching out all the places that you've gone, and I really have to say that first time ever, and I've been through a lot of millage elections, this is the most educated that we've ever given the public, and kudos to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, but I can't take all the credit. It's a team effort.
It is. It is a team effort, but you have to lead the way.
Well, I appreciate that. On behalf of the team, thank you.
I was also going to say I appreciate all the efforts. We had somebody come to our house this weekend who was passing out literature for the bond, so that was exciting to see. I didn't end up answering the door, my husband did, so I don't know who it was that came, but it was exciting just to see people out and about. Just the time that people are donating, I think, is wonderful, and it's great to see people all coming together for a really great cause. So obviously you've put in a lot of effort. I also got really good feedback from people who went to the dinner, one of the dinners that was hosted for the seniors, and I got good feedback on that presentation as well. In particular, I know they mentioned they really liked that pie graph of the athletic portion versus the academic, and they had said that really stood out to them, and that was a very valuable slide. So yeah, just thank you everybody for all the efforts that they've been putting in.
To just piggyback, I think the community is very excited. Mr. Castle, Mrs. Borg, Mr. Vince, thank you, and Mr. Estrada for the food service and the culinary. There's an excitement in the community for the restaurant to open second semester, for our community to begin coming in and having breakfast and lunch on certain days. So it was a great, last week was a great experience. There was a lot of positives on it, so.
Okay, is there anyone else who has anything to share today? Okay. Moving on, we have some action items. First up, approval to purchase laptops from C-High.
C-High, yeah.
C-High Computer Products.
As part of the 2013 bond, there were laptops that were purchased at the beginning of the bond and laptops that were purchased towards the end of the bond. The remaining bond dollars for the 2013 would be purchased to replace laptops. These laptops are as with all technology evolve, and become more durable and in use. So these laptops would replace the laptops at the middle school level. It's 530 laptops that we'd be replacing. It comes with a hard outer shell case. It has a touchscreen, flip surface tablet, so it's obviously the next generation. With the high schools this year, we began doing a one-to-one where students could be bringing their own devices in, which has been pretty successful. We've worked out a couple bugs, but it's been pretty successful. And based on the usage of the laptops in the elementary, particularly third grade, we're going to begin replacing some of the worn laptops with some of these that were taken out of the middle school and be able to have additional laptops there. We'll be able to use some of these laptops in the lower grades because they have the tablets and they don't always have a class set because they share them in the carts. Middle school, when we looked at the analysis of the wear and tear on the laptops, and no disrespect to the middle school staff or anything, but they're a little more rougher on the laptop just because I think the age group and how they handle it. But I think the case that would be built at the hard shell, we begin replacing those. So in order to get the exact dollar amount, we would use the remaining bond dollars, which there are $221,734.39 left, and we would need a little bit of general fund, which would be in the amended budget of $2,200 for general fund to put them together to get the 530 laptops that would be needed for the replacement. So, and this was a part, I don't know if it's a condition, but in order to get the next bond, all your funds have to be exhausted. And this was planned. We had sent a letter to the state saying that this was the plan to replace them once we had the bids and everything. So that's it.
Sample resolution.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the purchase of 530 laptops from C-High Computer Products, Inc. for a total not to exceed $223,935.60, for which $221,734.39 is authorized from the 2013 voter-approved bond, and $2,201.21 is authorized from the 2019-20 general fund as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support.
Okay, is there any discussion? Kyle, I'll do roll call. Kyle?
Aye.
Margaret?
Aye.
Sherry? Aye. Chris?
Aye.
Jessica? Aye. Angela?
Aye.
I vote aye, motion passes. Next up, we have approval of the 2019-20 middle school and high school course catalog revision.
Okay, back in February, I believe it was February 25th, there was revisions to the catalog that was presented to the board to begin effective this school year. And since that time, there are some things that have come up that we're trying to, in essence, clean up to create a consistency. And it particularly involves, I'm going to say there's two folds. It all involves dual enrollment courses, which in your packet would be page 79, which is the actual section that speaks to dual enrollment, and page 88, which is the form that a parent would sign should they want their child to participate in dual enrollment classes. Just to recap, dual enrollment was passed back in 1996 as part of the Post-Secondary Enrollment Options Act. The legislators have evolved that act to include students being able to take dual enrollment courses beginning in 8th grade, typically 8th, 9th, and to some extent 10th graders do not take dual enrollment because it's a challenge getting the student to the college class. However, there are some that have taken them in the past, and in other districts it's higher and lower depending on the number. Most of our students are in 9th or 11th and 12th grade where they have more they have the ability to drive themselves. I guess that's one of the factors. But again, we have a lot of parents that still drive it. So to enroll in dual enrollment, a student/parent has to make one decision, the first decision. which speaks to, do you want the dual enrollment class to count as high school credit only, college only credit, or both? In the last form that was approved in February, that was taken off, so we need to put that on the applicant. By law, the parent student have to make that decision. However, the question of the grade of that dual enrollment is what then is left up to the district's discretion. It has been applied differently, and we're trying to clean that up because when you apply the grade, it affects the overall GPA. So for instance, in some cases, if I chose it to be high school credit, the grade point was included in the grade point calculation. And in some cases, it wasn't. So the recommendation before you is beginning with the class of 2023, which is this year's freshman class. If they take it for high school credit, or they take it for high school and college credit, that grade is part of the GPA for the student. Those dual enrollment courses would receive a 0.5 bonus like we do for AP courses or honors courses. And the concept behind that is it is a college level class. It is supposed to be more rigorous than a high school. So we want to honor those students that are taking that college level classes. For the current seniors, juniors, and sophomores, 20, 21, and 22, the dual enrollment class would not be part of the GPA because it is then inconsistently applied, that we need to clean that up and apply it, that if you're taking dual enrollment, it would not be part of the GPA. Going forward with the incoming freshman, if you choose high school or you choose it to be some sort of high school credit, then it will be part of it. The challenge or the risk that someone may have is if I choose it not to be for high school credit, I still have to have 22 credits to graduate. And it is mathematically possible for me to take dual enrollment classes, as many as I can by law, take my courses here at Richmond. If I don't choose high school credit, I don't have enough high school credits to graduate in their senior year. So it's really a conversation between what's in the parent and the student if they're going to take it for high school or just college. Because some just want it for the college credit because then it can transfer into a university possibly as elective credit, reducing overall cost. I mean, there's a variety of reasons why. So before you, the language reads, and if you would just bear with me, I'd like to read it at least for the listening audience because this is a very topic that has a lot of interest in it. So beginning with the class of, it should be 2023, students taking dual enrollment courses shall choose one of the three options that will apply to the course. First option, high school credit only. If high school credit only is selected, the dual enrollment course, for the dual enrollment course, then the course shall be counted for high school credit and the grade shall be counted in the student's overall high school GPA calculation. In addition, the dual enrollment course shall receive a 0.5 bonus when calculated in the student's overall high school GPA. College only credit. If college only credit is selected, the dual enrollment course shall not count for high school credit and the grade shall not be calculated in the student's overall high school GPA calculation. And then high school and college credit is the third option. If high school and college credit is selected for the dual enrollment course, then the course shall be counted for high school and college credit, and the grade shall be calculated in the student's overall high school GPA calculation. In addition, the dual enrollment course shall receive a 0.5 bonus when calculating the student's overall grade. Part of this, why it's here, is the district's decision of whether to count or not has never been in any written document that we have found. So we're trying to clean that up so going forward it clarifies it. And for those that are currently in it, not having it count for some and others, we're trying to be consistent in how we apply the GPA calculation for those. That's it. That's the only change in the catalog. Questions?
Yes. Okay. If we're changing this, and maybe I'm not following, if we're changing this so that it cleans it up, So we have 10th, 11th, and 12th graders where we've been doing it one way, maybe with some students with is that what I'm hearing?
For some students, if they chose high school credit,
So they already had the option.
they already had the option on it. The only time it wasn't is for this past February where that part got taken off. But it has to be back on because by law, they have to choose what they want. If they chose high school credit, for some students, it was part of the GPA, and for some students, it wasn't. So it was applied
Unevenly.
unevenly.
Okay. So then how does that affect a student that is a senior, graduating grade point wise, all of the, top 10, all of that kind of stuff? How does that affect it?
We have to literally go through every student, recalculate. There will be some that are going up, and some that go down. We've had the conversation because with this senior class in particular, we are to the thousandths of a
Right.
decimal. And looking at, we're potentially going to have a lot of ties, or some ties in this, depending on what decimal place we go out to. So the top 10 could potentially be 15 plus kids if we've got ties at each level, depending on the decimal. We are, like I said, thousandths. And I think
So we're correcting based on what we're doing for the class of 2023.
we're correcting going forward, because none of the class of 2023 was it ever written that if you choose it for high school,
Right.
it's going to be part of your GPA. That was never in any written documents, because it was always a district discretion. So because there are no current freshmen, this would be, typically when you make that change, you phase it in, beginning with the incoming freshman, and you make that change. The situation we're in now is we've got students more at the senior level, because they have more or dual enrollment classes. How do we correct or apply the standard so that it applies fairly for everybody and consistently? So we're not giving one an advantage over the other. Because currently, I could show you an example that if you had a student where they took 2 dual enrollment courses, it's advantageous for them not to have those dual enrollment courses be included in the GPA, where you have a student who's taking honors and taking similar classes here, but taking all 6 in Richmond. So there's an unfair advantage in that aspect. But every scenario that we've looked at, and Mr. Castle and Mrs. Borwick and I and Mrs. Lepak last Monday, Tuesday, I can't remember the dates, last week, ran multiple scenarios looking at students and what the effect would be.
And everyone's aware that the students that are being affected. Where I'm coming from is this is the catalog, this is what it's going to be going forward, but you've got that group of seniors in particular that this is going to affect because we've been unevenly doing it. So all of those students and their parents that are affected know what we're doing here.
They will. Mr. Castle's drafted a letter. That letter will go out tomorrow once the board has corrected. There's really 2 letters that have to go out.
Okay.
One is for the existing that is going to affect them, the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Right.
I don't mean to keep looking, so I apologize. And one is the incoming freshmen, though none of the incoming freshmen are currently in dual enrollment courses. But
Right.
we need to notify them if they're going to take dual enrollment second semester, it will be part of their GPA.
If they choose it, or it won't, if they choose it.
If they choose high school credit for the college and high school credit. If they choose it only for college credit, then it would not be part of their GPA. And that's where the conversation really needs to be with the parent, the student, and the administrative and team here. As you're adding up your credits to get to that 22, if I take 2 credits my senior year and 2 credits my junior year, credit my sophomore year and credit my freshman year, there's 6 credits from the 24 possible. I only have 18 credits. You don't have enough to graduate even though you've taken those 2. And that's where that conversation with the parent, they need to at least be aware of it, where they may have to take
additional high school credits if they still want them not to count and only count as high school or college credit.
Is it an all or nothing thing too? Like both years have to count? Or could they count one year and not the other year?
Every year they do a dual enrollment, they have to make a selection, one of those three choices.
They could
So
choose
they
one
could-
of the years.
Correct,
to-
they could choose my sophomore year, I don't want it, because I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I want it to count as college credit. And when they get to their senior year, they may say, I want them to count. If they choose it to count towards credits for graduate, then it counts as a GPA.
If they take 2 college courses in a semester, they can choose if they want one course to count and one not, correct?
For every course, they have to choose, make that choice.
Right, but
So technically,
even
yes.
if they take 2 in a semester, they can still choose one.
That's an option they could. If they took 2 second semester, they could choose one to be college only, and they could choose one to be high school credit only, or in some combinations. But yes, you're right, they could choose.
Is there, the .5 boost, I understand that because college courses are harder. But there's not as big a criteria for the college courses as there is for AP courses? Is that correct? Or what is the requirement for a student to take AP classes?
They would, it's typically a teacher recommendation for an AP. How are they doing score-wise, performance-wise? So there is some. There is a possibility, because I know of every student that has specifically happened to that they could be in a regular English class, get signed up into an AP because the student and the parent chose it, and realize that may not be what they wanted, and then they'd have to go back either to an honors or to just the traditional grade level. A college level class is they have to meet the criteria of the accrediting colleges for the criteria of the rigor in that course.
But I think, are you asking to do dual, anyone can do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think is what you're asking.
Dual enrollment
Anyone
on-
can do a dual enrollment.
On the dual enrollment, on page 879, it requires you to look at certain scores based on the course. But if there are courses that do not fall in an English, math, language, art, then the requirements to do that dual enrollment are less. But in order to be in an English class, like for instance, we look at Explore, Plan, or ACT, or PSAT, or SAT, you have to have a certain cut score to qualify to get into that course.
Correct, Mr. Gassel, on that?
Yeah, the dual enrollment process, you actually submit an application to the university based on teacher recommendations and transcript records. The college is actually the one that has a determining say on that.
But you have to, on these, the law requires us to look at those courses, and that's outlined in the catalog.
And the rigor level for an AP course is generally considered to be right around that freshman level of college, so that's why we kind of equated the dual enrollment to the AP as the same .5, as opposed to the .2 for honors. They're on just a different plane, just slightly.
Thank you.
So just to summarize, for the incoming freshmen, this would be applied. So there's one communication going out to the freshmen. For the current sophomores, juniors, and seniors, whether they chose college or chose for high school or whatever their option is, it's not part of the GPA calculation. But they still have the option because they choose whether I want it to be high school credit or college only credit, because or both, because that has to be part of the choice for a parent.
Motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the 2019-20 middle school and high school course catalog revisions as outlined in the attached documentation effective immediately.
Support.
That was Sherry.
All right, moved and supported. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to do roll call. Margaret?
Aye.
Sherry? Aye. Kyle?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Jessica?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:50.